stop. Right now, someone fears your disappointment more than their own failure, not because you threatened them, not because you yelled, because you mastered something they can't see. The most powerful people don't demand respect. They fear, strategic fear, the kind that makes others police themselves. Machiavelli called this dignified terror. In the next 27 minutes, you'll learn the psychological mechanism that makes people desperate to please you, without ever raising your voice, without manipulation. This is the fear trick. You felt it. That sinking moment when someone cancels on you, breaks a promise, disrespecting your time, and they don't even seem to care. Meanwhile, you watch others command rooms without saying a word. Their requests become priorities. Their time gets protected. People scramble to avoid letting them down. What's the difference? It's not authority. It's not status. It's not even likability. It's something psychological, something invisible. Here's what's actually happening. Most people operate from hope. They hope others will respect them. I hope people will keep their word. Hope their kindness gets returned. But hope is not a strategy. Powerful people don't hope for respect. They engineer it through a single psychological principle that rewires how others see disappointing them. You're not weak. You're operating without the framework. That changes today. Machiavelli watched the courts of Renaissance Italy collapse. Princes who ruled through love alone got betrayed. Leaders who demanded fear through cruelty got overthrown. But there was a third type. Leaders who cultivated what he called reverent fear. Not terror, not affection, something between. A psychological state where people feared disappointing you more than they feared punishment. This is the ultimate form of control, because it doesn't require enforcement, it requires perception. Machiavelli discovered that the most stable power comes from making people believe that your disappointment carries weight, that failing you has consequences beyond the visible, not because you'll punish them, but because they'll punish themselves. Modern psychology calls this anticipated disappointment anxiety. Machiavelli called it mastery, and you're about to learn exactly how it works. Number 1, create scarcity of approval. Most people give approval freely. They praise everyone, validate constantly, hand out affirmation like it's worthless. And that's exactly what it becomes. Worthless. Here's what powerful people understand. When your approval is rare, it becomes valuable. When it's valuable, people chase it. When they chase it, they fear losing access to it. Picture this scenario. 2 managers. One celebrates every small task. Great job on that email. Amazing work showing up on time. Fantastic breathing today. The other stays neutral most of the time. Observe. Acknowledges effort without emotional fanfare. But when they do approve, when they give that nod, that brief, well done, it lands like a promotion. Guess which team works harder? Guess whose disappointment terrifies people? Here's what's happening underneath. The human brain processes approval through the same reward circuits as food and money. When something is abundant, the brain devalues it. When it's scarce, every instance becomes precious. Your approval must be earned, not given. Machiavelli once said, "Men are more ready to repay an injury than a benefit, because gratitude is a burden and revenge a pleasure." But he also understood this. When you make your approval difficult to obtain, people don't take it for granted. They protect it. Here's how you apply this. Stop overpraising. Stop validating every minor action. When someone does good work, acknowledge it briefly, factually, without emotional excess. Save your genuine enthusiasm for truly exceptional moments. Most people fear this makes them cold. It doesn't. It makes you calibrated. But here's what most people miss. Number 2, establish invisible standards. The strongest form of control is the standard people can't quite define, but always feel. You don't need written rules. You don't need long explanations. You need a presence that communicates excellence without ever saying the word. Imagine this. A chef runs a kitchen. Never yell. Never lists expectations. But there's something about how they move, how they taste, how they pause before speaking, that makes every cook triple-check their station. No one wants to present subpar work, not because of punishment, but because the standard is felt. This is psychological mastery, when people can't point to specific rules, but somehow know what disappoints you. They become hyper-vigilant. They self-correct before you ever have to. Here's the mechanism. Humans are pattern recognition machines. When you consistently embody excellence, consistency, precision, people unconsciously internalize those patterns as the baseline. Falling below that baseline creates cognitive dissonance, a feeling of wrongness they want to avoid. Your standards don't need words. They need consistency. Machiavelli understood this. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Your appearance, your consistency, your patterns. These communicate standards more powerfully than any speech. The application is simple, but precise. Whatever standard you want others to meet, embody it first. Want punctuality? Be early. Want quality? Never let sloppy work leave your hands. Want respect? Carry yourself with dignity. People won't disappoint the standard they witness. They'll disappoint the standard you preach but don't practice. This reveals something even more powerful. Number 3, master controlled emotional distance. Here's what weak people do. They're emotionally available all the time, always open, always accessible, always responding immediately. Here's what powerful people do. They vary their emotional temperature, not hot and cold randomly. That's instability, but strategically calibrated warmth and distance. Picture a relationship, personal or professional, doesn't matter. Person A is always warm, always available, always emotionally consistent. Person B, sometimes warm, sometimes professionally distant, sometimes engaged, sometimes observing. Who do you think about more? Who do you work harder to please? Whose disappointment would actually affect you? Person B, every time. Here's the psychology. Intermittent reinforcement is the most addictive behavioral pattern in psychology. Slot machines use it. Toxic relationships run on it, and strategic people weaponize it for influence. When people can't predict your emotional availability, they stay alert. They read your mood. They adjust their behavior to maintain access to your warmth. Your distance creates fear. Your warmth creates the reward. The unpredictability creates the obsession. Distance is not cruelty. Distance is strategy. Machiavelli said, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Be both. Warm enough to show you're human. Distant enough to maintain mystery." Practical application. Don't always respond immediately. Don't always match others' emotional energy. Sometimes be warm and engaged. Sometimes be focused and professional. Let people earn your full attention, not receive it by default. This isn't manipulation, it's boundary protection. But watch what happens when you combine this with the next principle. Number 4, demonstrate consequence through silence. Most people show disappointment through words, lectures, explanations, emotional displays. This is weakness disguised as communication. Real power sits in silence. Imagine someone lets you down, misses a deadline, breaks a commitment. Most people react immediately. I'm really disappointed. I expected better. This is unacceptable. But watch what a master does. Nothing. Just awareness. Just a shift. They don't explain the disappointment. They embody it. Brief. Professional. Then they move on. But something changed. The energy changed. The access changed. And the other person feels it. Here's what's happening neurologically. When you verbally express disappointment, you give the other person closure. They can defend, explain, apologize, and discharge the guilt. But when you stay silent, that guilt has nowhere to go. It sits in them, grows in them, haunts them. The absence of your reaction becomes more terrifying than any reaction could be. Silence is the weapon they can't defend against. Machiavelli observed, "Never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception." And silence is the ultimate deception. It makes people deceive themselves into believing they've lost something irreplaceable. Here's how you use this. When someone disappoints you, don't rush to express it. Stay measured, professional, brief, then create subtle distance. Not dramatic, just present. Less warmth, less availability, less energy. Don't announce it, don't explain it, just be it. They'll notice, they'll scramble, they'll try to fix what they can't see, and in that scramble, you'll see who actually values your regard. Pay attention to this next part. Number 5, build a reputation bigger than your presence. The most powerful form of fear happens when you're not in the room. When people modify their behavior, police their words, elevate their standards, because they imagine your disappointment. This is the ultimate leverage. Picture this. A teacher leaves the classroom. In one room, chaos erupts immediately. In another, students continue working at the same intensity. Why? Because one teacher built a presence, the other built a reputation. Reputation is presence without proximity. It's the ghost of your standards living in other people's minds. Here's the mechanism. When you consistently demonstrate a pattern, hold a standard, embody a principle, people begin to internalize a model of you. This internal model becomes a reference point they check against, even when you're absent. Psychology calls this the internalized other. Machiavelli called it maintaining the state in absence. Your reputation makes people ask, what would they think of this? Before acting. That question, that pause, is where your power lives. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be unforgettable. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." But he also understood, the best fear is the fear people carry with them, the fear of disappointing a standard, not a person. Application. Be consistent in your standards. When you say something matters, act like it matters. Every time, no exceptions. People will learn that your word is fixed, that your disappointment is predictable, and predictable consequences create reliable fear. Also, let your standards speak through others. When someone mentions you, what do they say? They don't tolerate excuses. They notice everything. They expect excellence. That's your reputation working. If this is clicking for you, if you're starting to see how these principles build on each other, drop this in the comments. I control my presence. This reveals something even deeper. Number 6, create asymmetric investment. Here's a pattern you've seen. Two people in a dynamic. One invests heavily, time, energy, attention. The other receives it. Who has the power? The one who invests less. When you give someone more than they give you, you become dependent. When they give you more than you give them, they become dependent, and dependency creates fear of loss. Imagine a professional relationship. Person A always initiates, always follow up, always accommodates. Person B responds when convenient, shows up when it suits them, give attention selectively. Person B might seem less invested, but Person A is terrified of losing them. Why? Because the imbalance creates perceived value. Here's the psychology. Humans overvalue what they work for. When someone has to invest effort to maintain access to you, your time, your attention, your approval, they perceive that access as valuable. But when you chase them, invest more, work harder, they perceive you as available, and available means replaceable. Make people invest to reach you. Machiavelli understood this deeply. Men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few really know what you are. If you appear too available, too invested, too accommodating, people see you as less valuable, regardless of your actual worth. Here's the tactical application. Don't always be the one who initiates. Don't always accommodate schedules. Don't always be the one who invests more energy. Make people come to you, reach for you, work to maintain connection, not through games, through boundaries. When your time requires effort to access, people value it. When your attention must be earned, people fear losing it. When disappointing you means losing access, people self-regulate to prevent it. The asymmetry creates the fear. But here's what changes everything. Number 7, display selective memory. This is the most subtle and most devastating. Most people forgive and forget. They move past disappointments, give second chances freely, reset to baseline. Strategic people, remember, not with grudges, not with visible resentment, but with awareness. Picture someone who's let you down repeatedly. Most people keep giving them the same trust, the same access, the same expectations, then act surprised when it happens again. But watch what a master does. They remember, they adjust, they recalibrate without announcement. That person who was unreliable, they don't get critical tasks anymore. They notice, they don't get the same level of trust. They notice, they don't receive the same warmth. They definitely notice. And here's what terrifies them. You never said anything. You never explained. You just changed. Here's the psychological warfare at play. When people know their past failures are filed, not forgotten, they live with chronic awareness that disappointment has compound interest. Each failure doesn't exist in isolation. It builds a pattern, and patterns determine futures. Your memory is your leverage. Machiavelli said, men ought either to be well treated or crushed, because they can avenge themselves from lighter injuries. Of more serious ones, they cannot. Small disappointments should be remembered, not punished dramatically, because the memory of them creates something more powerful than revenge. It creates prevention. When someone disappoints you, don't make a scene. Don't lecture. Just recalibrate your trust. Give them less responsibility, less access, less of yourself. Do it quietly. Do it permanently, until they prove the pattern changed. Most people fear being cruel. This isn't cruelty. This is pattern recognition. This is protecting your energy by trusting people at the level they've demonstrated they can be trusted. And when people realize you're recalibrating based on their actions, they become terrified of adding to the list. Comment. I see through patterns, if you understand why this is the most powerful principle. This brings us to the final piece. Number 8, embody outcome, indifference. The ultimate paradox of power. The less you need others to meet your expectations, the more they'll break themselves trying to meet them. Desperation repels. Indifference attracts. Think about someone who needs your approval. I need you to like them. I need you to validate them. How do you feel toward them? Probably not respect. Now think about someone who seems completely fine whether you approve or not. Someone whose standards are internal. Someone who'd rather walk away than lower their expectations. That person terrifies you, because your opinion doesn't control them, and what you can't control, you try harder to please. Here's the mechanism. When you're attached to outcomes, people feel your need. Need creates obligation. Obligation creates resistance. Resistance creates disappointment. But when you genuinely don't need others to behave a certain way, when you're truly fine, walking away from anyone who doesn't meet your standard, people feel your freedom. And freedom is magnetic, because it's rare. The less you need them, the more they need you. Machiavelli's greatest insight. The first method for estimating the intelligence of a ruler is to look at the men he has around him. If you need to keep people who disappoint you, you look weak. If you can release people who don't meet your standard, you look powerful. And power attracts quality, while weakness attracts users. Here's how you embody this. Stop being attached to specific people meeting your expectations. Be attached to your standard. If someone can't meet it, be genuinely okay letting them go. Not as punishment, but as alignment. This doesn't mean being cold. It means being clear. When people sense you're truly indifferent to whether they stay or go, they suddenly become invested in staying, because they realize you won't beg, won't compromise, won't lower your bar. You'll just move on. And that possibility, the possibility of being replaced by your indifference, creates the most sustainable fear of all, the fear of irrelevance. You came here wondering why others don't fear disappointing you. You're leaving with the architecture of psychological influence. You learned that approval must be scarce to be valuable, that standards communicated through presence are stronger than rules, that strategic distance creates magnetic pull, that silence is more powerful than words. You discovered how reputation works in your absence, how asymmetric investment creates dependency, how selective memory builds compound consequences, and how indifference to outcomes creates desperate pursuit. These aren't manipulation tactics. These are protection strategies, boundaries disguised as behavior patterns. Machiavelli wrote, "Since love and fear can hardly exist together, if we must choose between them, it is far safer to be feared than loved." but he also understood something deeper. The best fear is the fear people create for themselves. When you master these principles, you don't enforce consequences. People enforce them on themselves. They imagine your disappointment. They feel the weight of falling short. They scramble to avoid the distance they know follows failure. You become the standard they measure themselves against. That's not control. That's mastery. Here's your choice. Continue being the person people casually disappoint, the one whose time gets disrespected, whose standards get ignored, whose disappointment means nothing, or become the person whose regard is valuable, whose standards are felt, whose disappointment creates sleepless nights, not through cruelty, through calibration. The techniques in this video work immediately, but only if you implement them consistently. Most people won't. They'll watch, agree, then continue operating from hope instead of strategy. Will you be different? If this changed how you see power dynamics, hit that like button. Drop your biggest insight in the comments. Share this with someone who needs to master the fear trick. Drop your final commitment. I respect. Subscribe if you want more Machiavellian psychology, more strategic frameworks, more tools to protect yourself in a world that rewards the strategic over the sincere. Fear isn't manipulation. Fear is clarity. When people fear disappointing you, it means they value you, and value is the foundation of every form of power. Master the fear, master the dynamic. Power isn't given. Power is architected. Now go architect yours.